Welcome aboard. I'm Brian Carmichael and this is Captured Light Creative. Hey, I recently took a trip down to Charleston, South Carolina, and I sat and was looking at my camera here and thinking, which one am I going to bring on this trip? And I originally picked up the Deluxe 8 and thought maybe I'll bring this. It's so nice and compact. And then I started thinking about Charleston and looking on the internet, thinking, gosh, there's a lot of great colors and textures there. Why don't I go for some full format action? And I decided to grab my Leica Q3. This really is a gorgeous camera. 60 megapixels with a fixed Summilux 28mm 1.7 spherical lens. Just a great piece of kit from Leica. Add that to an amazing electronic viewfinder and a tilting rear screen, integrated USB-C charging. It's really a self-contained camera and ready for travel. Of course, it comes with the 28 and the 43mm version. I'm shooting the 28 today, but I do like that 28. I feel like it gives a little bit wider view and a little bit of more context for travel photos and shows a little bit more of what's going on in the scene. This was my first visit to Charleston and I was really excited. I knew there was a lot of history there, a lot of older buildings. Let's take a look at the map and I'll show you where I spent most of my time. Charleston is located in the southern United States along the coast of South Carolina. It's one of the oldest cities in the country, founded way back in 1670. It's the home of Fort Sumter and a great historic district, which is where I spent most of my time. I stayed here at the Francis Marion Hotel on Marion Square, and I spent most of my time walking the neighborhoods in the historic district south of Market or Broad Streets down here. So you can see all of the historic buildings actually mapped out on Google here. I really just spent a lot of time. I just took an Uber down there and then just did a lot of walking around the streets. There's just history and things to photograph all over the place, so a lot of fun. So let's take a look at the camera. I'm going to talk about how I set the Q3 up. People may set it up differently than this. It's a pretty simple camera. I have it set up pretty simply as well. And then we'll look at some photos, and as we look at the photos, I'll talk about some tips and tricks that I use just both in the camera and in general photography, so hopefully you'll get something out of that. As far as the outside of the camera, I run the JJC Q3 grip. I like this one because it has access to battery and memory doors here on the bottom. I also run a glass screen protector and this simple thumb rest that plugs into the hot shoe. I spent a little more on the thumb grip because it has these clean push-through buttons, which I really like. All this came from Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. For a strap, I like these Peak Design connectors, but I actually run a black Clever Design leather strap. I don't know if you know about Clever Design. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, and don't get any consideration for talking about them. But I do like their straps because they make a nice leather strap, which I love, but with the Peak Design connectors on it, which I think is pretty cool. The quick connectors make it really easy, right? I have these on a lot of my different cameras, so I kind of justify the cost of a nice leather strap because I can share it between multiple cameras. I also like my cameras without straps when they're on the shelf, so it works out really well for me. So when I'm wandering the streets and doing street style photography, I just like to be ready to shoot anything. So generally I'm in f8 in aperture priority, and that's how I have the camera basically set up. On the back of the camera, we've got these two buttons. I have the inboard set to exposure lock just because I shoot black and white a lot, and when I'm doing kind of high contrast stuff, I like to be able to meter for the highlights and then recompose. The other button I have set to switch between camera and video, so pretty simple there. The top button here I have set to ISO, which I think is the default for it, but of course don't forget with Leica you can hold down any button for a second or so and it'll allow you to pick from the menu and reassign that, which is really nice and easy. The thumb wheel around this button at the top I just have set to exposure compensation. I wander around a lot. Like I said, I shoot in aperture priority. I keep the camera around f8, so that's kind of a nice middle zone for whatever I'm going to shoot. But I do use aperture priority, even though, you know, I'm very good in manual and all the others, but I find aperture priority lets me control the mood and the shot that I want, the artistic look of it. And I set ISO to auto, white balance, depending on whether I'm outside or not. If I'm outside and it's just a nice sunny day, I'm going to set ISO to 100. I'm going to set my white balance to just a sunny day. And if I am just kind of wandering in and out of light and shadow, like it often happens in these small towns like Charleston when you're in these small neighborhoods, I do auto white balance, I do auto ISO, I do aperture priority. So the tip is, let the camera work for you. Don't be afraid to shoot in a priority mode. A lot of people shoot in aperture priority. A lot of pros shoot in aperture priority. It's just a great kind of all around. So as you're walking, you know, my tip here would be aperture priority, auto ISO, auto white balance, and you're pretty good to go. You know, if you see a spectacular shot where you're going to slow down and really set up, maybe you want to go to manual mode, or maybe you want to get the ISO set on a manual number. But for general walk around, street photography stuff, I go aperture priority f8 and I'm ready to go. Hey, a quick public service announcement. If you're liking the video and the stuff I'm putting out, please subscribe. Everybody's doing it. It's really, everybody's talking about it. Not really, but it does help. You know, it's not so important to me. I like the views, but it's very important to the algorithm and YouTube, and it helps people find the channel. So if you get a second, feel free to subscribe and just help out the channel a little bit. Really appreciate it. Now back to our previously scheduled program. The other thing I do a lot with the Leicas, and I used to do it a lot with when I shot Fuji, but I do shoot JPEG and RAW. I like the JPEGs that come out of the Leicas. Both the Q3 and the Deluxe 8 produce just great images and great JPEGs. So I'll shoot JPEG and RAW, and then when I import them into Lightroom later, I'll import them separately so they're side by side. I've got the JPEG and the RAW, so I have the JPEG for reference. A lot of times I'm able to just export the JPEG right away because it looks so great, and I can have that for reference if I'm going in to edit on Lightroom. But the other thing is that the JPEGs also work great with the Leica app. I don't know if you've used the Leica app yet, but the Leica app with the Leica camera is so handy. It just works so well. So you can just easily connect with the camera and download JPEGs. You can download RAWs too, but you can download JPEGs ready to go if you want to post on social media or something else. You've got everything right there, so it's very handy. I also shoot in high contrast monochrome. So if you go in the menu, you'll see that they're under the JPEG settings. You can select different, you know, color, vivid color, standard color, regular monochrome, high contrast monochrome. I shoot high contrast monochrome. To me, it feels more genuine that way. I'm primarily a monochrome shooter, so I enjoy being able to see on the back screen and in the viewfinder the image in black and white, and as I shoot, the JPEG image is also in black and white. The RAW, of course, is all the data, so it's still in color. But I feel like I really get the monochrome experience when I've got that turned on and I'm looking at things in monochrome. I'm shooting monochrome, and quite often I can just use the JPEG monochrome as is or just tweak it a little bit. So I feel like if you're shooting monochrome, that's a little bit more of an authentic experience, and you've still got the color, you know, if you want to back down and take a look at color and edit from there. So I really enjoy that, and I'd say most of the time I'm shooting in that, but certainly the standard picture profile on the Leica Q3 is excellent as well, and I feel like that gives you a really nice image. So just the way I do it, I love to shoot black and white. I found myself in Charleston though shooting a lot more color because there are such vibrant colors there and such a history of color there. Find a style that you like. You know, if you like to see black and white in the viewfinder like I do, or you like to see color in the viewfinder and see exactly what you're shooting, exactly what your RAWs are going to contain, whatever that is, you like aperture priority, you like shutter priority, you like manual focus, whatever you like, set the camera up the way you like it, and then go into the user profiles in the Leica menu and save that user profile. You can save up to 6 profiles there, so you can have an autofocus, you can have a manual, you can have aperture priority, any way you want to set the camera up. All you do is set it up that way and go into the menu, and under user profiles you can save it under one of those slots. I just learned, you know, talk about learning something every day, that you can actually name those user files in the Q3. I've been testing my memory, I think, ever since I got this thing with just you know, user 1, user 2, user 3, and I just figured out as I was playing around the other day, oh hey, I can name these. So you could name these, you know, aperture priority color, aperture priority monochrome, shutter priority, video, whatever you want to name those. The tip here is on the Leica, get those user profiles and save those. You can quickly switch those right on the quick menu. So you hit the menu button once and you can pick it right there and get right to your user profile that you like. And so it's very handy and very quick to change things around, and easy to do, right? You just set the camera how you like it and hit save into one of those user profiles. So another tip is to learn and use your histogram. So if you've got your camera set up, hopefully you're using your histogram, or you can see your histogram through your EVF. That's the way I have my view set up. And it really does give you a nice check to see where you're balanced. You know, the left side of the histogram is about shadows and dark, and the right side is about light. And usually on the Leica, I like to preserve my highlights, so I like things leaning a little to the left when I look at the histogram. So if you don't know how to use a histogram, it's something that's very helpful. I will probably do a video to help explain that, but there are plenty of videos on YouTube that talk about the histogram. But one of my tips would be to use that histogram and turn it on the screen so that you're able to judge, you know, just kind of use that as you're judging your exposure, and make sure that your picture comes out really nice and you're preserving those highlights. With the Leicas, they tend to, if you're a little overexposed, it's hard to recover the highlights. In a Leica, if you're way underexposed, it's surprisingly easy to recover those shadows. So the histogram is very helpful. Another tip with the Q3 as you're out wandering around, you know, autofocus works well most of the time with the Leicas. But the Leicas do use contrast-based focusing system. So sometimes when you get into low light or other situations, the focus isn't, or it's hunting a little bit, or it just isn't right on. So don't be afraid on the Leica Q3. You know, on the bottom of the Q3 lens, there's a little focus tab. You push it in and you move it into manual focus. Don't be afraid to move into manual focus and just finish off the focusing itself. I have focus peaking turned on for manual, so if it is, and typically I find it in low light situations, I just switch to manual focus and I just manual focus the Q3 in those situations. And again, the autofocus on the Leicas isn't bad, it's pretty good. Especially when you're in single autofocus and not continuous focus, it works well. But sometimes it'll struggle in low light. So that's a tip: is just you know, just reach under the camera, push in that tab, and move that ring around, and you can move easily just right into manual focus. The other thing with the Q3, which is really cool, you know, it's got the fixed lens. But it also has macro functions, so that's often fun when you want to shoot something close or some cool texture, or you know, some cool landscapes. You see a neat flower. You can just turn that ring around and be right into macro mode. And macro mode works well. You can get fairly close, and it gives you a nice effect. So use macro mode. It's easy. It's built right into the lens. As you switch into macro mode, you get a brand new focusing scale on the lens and everything else. It's really cool. One of the things I love about this camera and how it works. So use macro mode as you're out wandering, and shoot some details of some things, and I think you'll be surprised about how good it comes out. Another thing that's very helpful with the Q3, you've got a fixed lens and a fixed focal length, and with other cameras, especially if you're used to shooting with zoom cameras, you stand in one spot and you zoom and take the shot that you want. With the Q3, my tip here is just to be very mobile. Move around, zoom with your feet, as we say, but don't get stuck in one viewpoint, looking at one direction at one photo. You've got kind of unlimited space for data here, so you can try some shots up close to the subject and then walk back and walk to the right and walk to the left, but zoom with your feet when you're shooting with the fixed lens camera, and you'll find that you introduce a whole group of different looks from these different distances as you move back and forth and zoom with your feet. So let's take a look at some of the photos that I took while I was in Charleston. Again, I'll just be giving you general photography tips, camera tips, etc., but things I think you might find useful. So here we go. So the next tip is really using that tilt screen, and you can use that tilt screen for high angle or low angle shots. The way I like to use it when I'm doing street photography, or in this instance in a crowded store, not wanting people to notice that I'm really taking a picture of them, I really want to capture the normal behavior. I held the camera very low here, and when you do that, you're kind of shooting from the hip. It's interesting because people don't pay attention to you for some reason. They think you're adjusting settings or something like that, but you can have the tilt screen and be shooting pictures from waist level and not getting people in any different behavior than what they're doing. And that's how I like to capture people, is in the act of what they're doing. I think that's the most interesting. Sometimes it's fun or funny if they notice you, but for these kind of voyeuristic, realistic shots, I like to hold the camera low, and that tilt screen really helps. Don't overlook the ordinary. These are actually pictures from my hotel room. I had turned the lights off to leave the room for the morning, and I turned around and noticed the interesting light on the bed, and then turned again and noticed this interesting view out the window of the room. I could have just closed the door and left the room, but the interesting thing about the ordinary is it's all around you, and you can always find kind of little pieces of beauty in the ordinary. This is Cathedral of St. John the Baptist, and it's just a real high tower. I could never get far enough away from this to get a good shot, but I did get an interesting shot here looking up the height of the tower. So down low and up high with an interesting angle. So the next tip is just looking for interesting light. I think you can look at this picture in this alleyway, or a little walkway here between these beautiful buildings, and see that this dappled light is really interesting and adds a lot of interest to the photo as we take a look at it. Light also leads you to color, right? Here we go again with some great dappled light against these neat colors, and just the way this has such a great feel to it. So I really enjoyed this. And even as I was walking down the street past the fire department, again, just this interesting light, right, where you've got this pure black on the bottom here, which feeds right into this great brick and the black and green of the logo and the green door. Okay, another tip is to look for texture. I mean, you can see it in this shot very easily. This texture of the brick and the stucco and the stained, actually this wall was stained from an ancient fire that occurred, and a little plant growing out of it. All kinds of interesting colors and things going on here. So look for texture as you shoot as well. That's an important thing that adds a lot of interest and feel and character to your shots. Hey, thanks for joining me today. I hope you found it interesting. It was a little bit of a grab bag of tips, but I hope you see that the Q3 is a great travel companion, as are the other Q series. Very self-contained camera. The Q3, of course, has the integrated USB-C charging, which makes it even easier as a travel companion. And of course, you know, a big sensor, autofocus, EVF. You've got everything you need right in the camera. And as I said, zoom with your feet and gives you the same effect as the mini lenses. But it's a great camera that produces great results. As always, I appreciate your viewership. If there's something I missed, something you want to add to the conversation, more information you need, please leave something down in the comments. And if you like the video, please give me a subscribe. And as I said earlier, subscribes are very important to make sure that the video gets out there and other people are watching the channel. So I would appreciate it if you can take the time to subscribe, and really appreciate it if you take the time to comment. I'll see you next time.